Hello and welcome to episode 15 of my trip down memory lane back to the Pacific Crest Trail and my through hike from exactly 10 years ago. In the last episode we drove to Etna from a highway from which we didn't actually want to drive to Etna, but we still had to pick up our resupply package. And we did that and spent a bit of the afternoon in Etna and then went out again in the evening with a group of young people with whom we hung out at the lake for a bit before we went into our tents and then went to sleep relatively soon. The next day began with wonderful views. This is actually going to be a really nice part of the trail. The landscape has become a bit more varied again, so we've been walking through forest quite a lot in the last few stages, but here we had great views again, great mountain panoramas, almost like in the highsierras, only of course much lower and unfortunately with less water. But there were really beautiful panoramas again, and not just once a day or so like in the past few weeks, but of course I was very happy to accept this as a nice change after the forest stages. Here's a little video of the first day after we left Etna and the amazing views we had.
Kommst du so nichtsahnend eine Ecke?
You come around a corner unsuspectingly and then you see this.
Sogar sehen.
Lakes even. Yes, it was always really amazing when you turned around the corner and the world suddenly opened up to you. It was absolutely spectacular. It was just really rewarding moment to be able to experience something like that. In general, in this episode, we didn't experience that much, but it wasn't that important anymore. So I was no longer in this state where I had to experience something amazing, something special all the time, see something amazing or do something amazing. But I was more concerned with just being where I was hiking and just being a part of nature. So I always had the feeling that I somehow belonged there now and that I wasn't there as a guest or possibly even an intruder. But I just had the feeling that I belonged exactly where I was and that I was right, and that was of course very, very nice, and it meant that on this stage I simply I really rested within myself and didn't really notice or experience anything spectacular or we're searching for any action or I just went with the flow, if you like, and that was very, very pleasant. What wasn't so pleasant, however, was that there really were a few fires burning in the immediate vicinity of the PCT now. And you can see that here, for example, this is not fog. It's all smoke from forest fires, and here too. And on the one hand, it's a bit dangerous, of course, but above all, it's extremely sad that so much landscape is being destroyed, so much habitat destroyed without being able to do much about it. We just heard the humming of the plane in the video before, and that was a daily companion now. Those are the firefighting planes that scoop up water from the mountain lakes and then drop it over the fires. But that often doesn't even do that much. I mean, of course it does, but primarily just containing the fire and not really putting it out. So the primary aim is to prevent the fire from spreading. And of course, it's all a very tragic situation. You can also smell it, and it's not very pleasant. Sometimes it really stinks, and it's probably not healthy either. When we were at Sonora Pass, the fire back there, we were completely inexperienced and couldn't assess it yet. And we just decided to skip this part. And now in Northern California, we've definitely learned that it's just part of it, and that you might have to go straight through the effects of the fire if you don't want to skip hundreds of miles of trails. So Northern California and Oregon were predominantly associated with fire for us, and especially the rest of Northern California and Oregon in particular, it was quite often the case that you would theoretically have had great views, like here now, but because of all the smoke, it just, wasn't, and which was a shame, of course, but we still had a great time there. Yes, here you can see the two extremes again. This is basically the fire that is currently burning. You can't see exactly where it's burning, but it was usually the case that you could see different places where there was really heavy smoke, and then it was immediately spreading through the valley and so on, and you can see here that the whole area is covered in smoke, and unfortunately that's what it looks like when it's over on the right. And of course that's really tragic. At times it was downright depressing to hike through it because it was just so ugly, so barren, so sad that the whole time you were just trying to get out quickly. Yeah, but then at some point we hit the 1600 mile marker, and that was of course a positive experience. So as I said, this stage was very, very nice. In itself, it was somewhat overshadowed by the smoke, but we also had a lot of great highlights. So we've now covered another 100 miles. Well, now it's only about 1050 miles until we get to Canada, and that's not bad. This was my favorite evening off the stage, my favorite camp spot. It was a perfect camp spot. It was really straight and had these amazing views. So on one side we looked out over the forest, and on the other side down into this gorge with the mountains in the background. It really is something to behold. You can definitely pitch your tent there. Yes, and then we went on, and as I said, it wasn't as if we wanted to experience God knows what now. We just went with the flow and were happy that we were allowed to hike there. It really is a huge privilege to be able to use a hiking trail like this for free and have these experiences without being asked for anything in return. It's really, really great of the country to provide something like this. I mean, it costs an incredible amount of money and manpower to maintain all that, and I wouldn't take that for granted. And yes, I think I learned to appreciate it more and more in Northern California because I had slowly come to terms with my, childish explorations on the PCT and had now reached a status where I was thinking more about more essential things. And yeah, I was definitely very grateful to everyone who made this possible. Yeah, what can I say? These are simply magnificent views. The lake down here on the left looks really awesome, and it's so pristine, so archaic somehow, and yeah, I just love that. A really great stage, so after the High Sierras, it really was another great highlight to hike through this area. Yes, I remember hiking that way very well. It was simply spectacular. The lake on the left, this crazy mountain massive on the right. It was really great. I met someone there, I can't remember who it was, and we walked along there and thought, we talked about it, how amazing it is to hike along this ridge and at these crazy scenery. Just awesome, and yeah. And then we saw our favorite animals again, the chipmunks, which I've mentioned several times now. It was a bit of a love-hate relationship, but well, when you see them like that, it's just really cute. They were already starting to gather or build nests somehow. I don't know if they were already preparing for winter or what. I don't think so, because we're still in July, but we've seen more and more of these chipmunks with tufts of hay and grass and so on in their mouths. It was always quite nice to watch the hustle and bustle. They were very industrious. This was also very, very funny to watch. how they were like the working class of the animal kingdom. Yes, this is also a super cool camp spot right on the lake, and you can see it's a bit crooked and all that, but and there was horse shit everywhere. It wasn't ideal, but the location was just totally awesome with this mirror smooth lake. I mean, it's a perfect reflection here, and then the moon rose in the evening, and that was, well, it was wonderful. And this type of rock here, it reminded me of Western movies. It was really a fantastic spot, apart from the things I just mentioned. But I remember it well, and there was another group too, and Shadowhawk was there too, played his flute, and there was also some people with horses. I mean, you can ride the PCT too, but it's not done that often, but occasionally you see some, and that was the case here, and all in all, it was just a really nice place. Yeah, the next day was a bit marked by burnt zones. We really walked through burnt terrain the whole time. Of course, I didn't take any great photos of that, but at some point I drew rainbow stripes under my eyes made from ashes from a tree. And at some point I was so frustrated by this landscape that I had somehow come up with a show to get through it. And yeah, there was also a lot of damage. You can see it here on the bridge. There was also other tray infrastructure that was pretty fucked up. There had been a very, very bad fire the year before, and it simply hadn't been rebuilt and finished and everything. It was very, very sad to see, but nonetheless, it was also great that you could still walk through it and that you could still survive this expression of nature, so to say. That was really interesting. Up here it says only 999 to Canada. That means we've now passed the point where it's less than 1,000 miles to the end, and that was really amazing. The whole time we had a 4-digit number of miles that we still had to run, and now we were in 3 digits, and that was one of my favorite markers that was put on the ground, because it just so drastically shows you, so clearly shows you how far you've already hiked, and it really is a crazy distance. Yeah, and then we arrived in Seiad Valley. Seiad Valley itself is only a very small place. There's an RV park and so on, and the famous Seiad Valley Café, where we are sitting outside right now. It's famous for people doing the pancake challenge. You somehow get, 5 pounds of pancakes or something like that. And it's a huge pile of pancakes. And they're also really big. And if you finish them, then you get them for free. But someone had told us beforehand that they are actually not very tasty. And so we decided not to do it. Instead, we treated ourselves to a very, very nice hot chocolate, which was really delicious. And then we had a really great omelette with fresh veggies baked into them, and the hash brown and English muffins and cheese, and it was really delicious. It was one of the tastiest things I ate on the entire tray. And yes, I was very glad that I didn't do the pancake challenge, but instead just enjoyed a really tasty, hearty breakfast. Yeah, and that's it for this episode. This one was a short one, because firstly there were a fewer days, but above all, we simply didn't experience as much as I said before. Or rather, we experienced great things the whole time, but nothing that really stood out, like climbing Whitney or something like that. As I said, I had simply arrived and experienced a lot of things without, thinking about them, just enjoying them, just enjoying the moment. And I think that's a very nice realization when you realize that you are there now, and it's very, very good to live that out. Yeah. And in the next episode, there will something really spectacular happen though. That's when we leave California and enter Oregon. This really is probably the biggest milestone we've experienced up to this point. And but until then, as always, if you liked it, please like the video, leave a comment if you have something to say or a question, and subscribe to the channel. And otherwise, see you in the next video. Ciao!